Welcome to the podcast where motherhood meets reinvention. I'm your host, Sharon Macey, and this is Mom to More. I'll be speaking with remarkable moms who have embraced the art of transformation, crafting their more by leveraging the skills they hone as stay-at-home moms. They'll share their experiences, struggles, and successes as they return to a former career, pursued a passion or hobby, or charted an entirely new path, giving you the clarity, motivation, and inspiration to help you answer the question, what do you want to do when your kids grow up? Welcome back. I'm excited you're here because today is going to change your life. Yes, you actually heard that correctly. Many of us of a certain age spend many years as stay-at-home moms. We are now looking to reframe, rebuild, and reinvent the next 20, 30, or 40 years of our life. And yes, that is a very long time. My next guest will make you feel fabulous about getting older while kicking your inner demons in the butt. She has crested the big 5-0. Welcome to the club, and is here to remind us that we all have it within ourselves to make the biggest splash possible by cannonballing into the deep end, because we have not peaked. In fact, we are just getting this party started. So woohoo for that. Amy Schmidt is an award-winning television and podcast host, best-selling author, TEDx speaker, motivational speaker, confidence, reinvention, and parenting media expert, and the founder of the brands Fearlessly Facing 50 and Your Confidence Connector. She was nominated to the inaugural 2021 list of the Forbes 50 over 50 of women shattering age and gender norms. Amy uses her personal storytelling and authentic self to empower women to take charge of their life at a time when many may feel a little invisible. Amy's podcasts and talk show appearances inspire listeners to step outside of their comfort zones, something we fully support and promote here at Mom to More. Amy is approachable and genuine and has a way of making you feel like you are the most important person in the room while inspiring you to take action. And of course, she was also a stay-at-home mom. Well, welcome, Amy. I'm so thrilled you're here.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I was jotting some of that down. I got goosebumps during that. Thank you so much for that great introduction. Whenever I hear that, I'm like, wow. I mean, it's crazy to think. And Mom to More, I love what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we are going to jump in because there is so much I want to chat with you about today. So you ready?
I'm ready. Let's get started. Absolutely.
All right. I start all of my interviews with my essential mom question, and that is, how many kids do you have and where did you raise them?
Oh boy. 3 kids, 3 big kids, not only taller than me, but older kids, 26, 24, and 20. And I raised them. I'm a woman that has moved 12 times in 31 years of marriage. So their wonder years were in Europe, actually. My daughter was in 7th grade when we moved to Germany, went to the international school, graduated from the international school, as did my son, who was in 4th grade, and my littlest one was in kindergarten and really never did American school until 6th grade.
And that was a lot. And in your book, which we will go into, you talk a lot about that experience. And it all just goes into your wonderful stories about being a stay-at-home mom, which I loved. So why was it important for you, Amy, to be a stay-at-home mom? And roughly how many years were you home with the kids?
Yeah, great question. You know, it's funny because Tim and I were college sweethearts. And we both had goals and things we wanted to do and things we wanted to explore and all sorts of things that we talked about and had discussions about. And I got into broadcast journalism. That was my start. And between graduating and living in Wisconsin, outside of Milwaukee, and then moving to Indianapolis, I was getting started. I was living my dream. And my husband was in pharmaceuticals and has been in big pharma his whole career. And all of a sudden, this conversation changed to, well, Amy, we're moving. Like every 36 months, I could almost count, about every 28 to 36 months, he was in a new position and we were moving. And we had to have that tough discussion of, okay, so am I going to be able to reinvent myself in a new market? In broadcast journalism, it's really different. You have to, you build your rapport, you build your reputation, you get known in the city. And so you can't move every 2-3 years. So we made that decision. I went into also in pharma and I worked in PR for a few years and retired in 1997. So that was a long time ago when you think about it.
That is considered back in the day. Yeah.
Back in the day. So I had my first child in 1997, and I decided to step away and stay home. And I remember the conversations about it. I talk a lot about courageous conversations, compassionate conversations, critical conversations that you need to have as a couple, especially around this. And we made the choice together to stay home, and I wouldn't change a thing. It was a choice we made together, and I learned a lot through it.
And I think that's really important what you just said, that this is a partnership. You know, a marriage or your significant other, it is a partnership. And while one person may be working outside of the house, the other person is working really hard inside of the house. So let's talk a little about mom skills and superpowers. I'd
Oof.
love to hear from you what skills you learned and you honed as a stay-at-home mom that helped you in your journey, which we will then get into.
Boy, I'll tell you, the biggest thing is patience. Patience. Patience as a mom, patience as a wife, patience as a daughter, a sister, a friend, all of that. But patience is something I learned a lot along this journey. I also learned about spontaneity, the gift of being spontaneous around things, and flexibility. Those were the biggest things. When I decided to make the decision, or we did, to stay home, my husband was traveling and continues to travel, not as much now, but he was traveling 2 to 3 nights a week, every single week.
That's a lot.
And, it gives you have to be patient. You have to be patient as a mom with your children because you're with them all the time. I remember many a phone call to a girlfriend saying, okay, I put it in my book, one of my very good friends, and I will send her this link so she listens to it. We used to have a little code word, and she would say, hey, do you want a fudgesicle? And a fudgesicle was, you go over, and she had a little pack of cigarettes in her freezer in the fudgesicle box. And that was like a mom moment, we needed that. And, I just think that patience is a big part of it. I had to be patient with my husband because he was traveling in different time zones all around the world. He would come home and I would be like, here you go. Here's one, here's the other. And the other one's running outside the door. So you're it, tag, you're it.
Tag, exactly.
But
I'm done.
I
Tag,
had
you're
to,
it.
I had to just get past we had to have a conversation about, hey, listen, I've been with them for the last 4 days. I've been doing this, that, and keeping all the balls in the air. But now I need a little time. But I always gave my husband, and I learned this from one of my dear friends, one of my mentors, I gave him 30 minutes when he walked in the door after a business trip. 30 minutes. I said, here you go. Time starts now. And you got 30 minutes. Go upstairs, unpack your bag, do whatever you want. But when you walk down those stairs and you come back in, you're on. And I think that was really good parenting advice. And for parents young moms that might be listening to this that are making a choice to stay home, it's really, really good advice.
And you're right about that, because I think oftentimes as a stay-at-home mom, dad comes home, he's been away for a night or two or three, and your first instinct is to say, I'm done.
Yeah.
You take them. But I think that is really sage advice to say, okay, you have 30 minutes to decompress, go. And then they know that in 30 minutes, it's time for them to reintegrate into the family. Okay, so Amy, we're going to talk about your book and Cannonball. And boy, that was just an inspirational read. And I absolutely loved it. We're going to get a lot more into it. But I'd love to know what inspired you to launch your podcast and to write your book. And how did you come up with the name Cannonball?
Thank you for asking that. Yeah, I'll tell you how I came up with the name first is that, and I have one here because this is actually me on the cover. And a shout out to Land's End because they're a Wisconsin-based company. I'm a born and raised Wisconsin girl. Because cannonball, I'd been a swimmer my whole life, and cannonballing in my mind was always just making that splash. And as a kid, you had that fearless exhilaration of doing it again and again and going off the high dive and wanting every friend to watch and every cute boy that might be there. You wanted to do it in front of them and make a big splash and whatever it was. And then, all of a sudden you get older and experiences and different things set in and you get stuck on the rungs of those ladders. So immediately when I thought of Cannonball, I think of starting ugly and doing it again and just pushing play on something. And that's how I came up with the name for that. So it's swim related, and it's also just a real visualization for women reading the book to know that they can make a cannonball and at any age, doesn't matter. How I decided to kind of launch my business after being home for so long. And to be fair, during that time, from 1997 until 2015, I did do other things. Like you, Sharon, I was involved in many community boards, PTA president, booster club president, advisors on all sorts of different things, and always was doing some freelance writing. And even when we lived in Germany for 6 years, as a trailing spouse, I was not able to get a work visa. So I used one of my skills. I looked back at my, what I call the highlight reel, and saw that I was a swimmer. I coached swimming. So I did do that. But I remember in 2015, I'd lost both of my parents while living abroad. And I was sitting in our home in Connecticut in Ridgefield, and it was quiet. One was off to college, and the other two were settling somewhat back into the American school system. And I was sitting there going, wow, like life is just passing just so quickly. Time flies. It is a real thing, and it just speeds up as you get older. And I knew that there was more I wanted to do. There was a lot more to Amy that was still evolving.
Mm-hmm.
And she still wanted to learn. She still wanted to use her creative side. She wanted to use the skill set that she had, and even had expanded being a stay-at-home mom. And that's when I decided to go for it, fearlessly, to be honest.
Right.
Fearlessly around the technology, around the connection part of it, just everything. I figured I'm going to take my own idea of a cannonball, start ugly, and see what happens.
Right. And I think the whole idea of fearless, which is something we're going to talk a lot about, is so important, because having been a stay-at-home mom for almost 20 years, been where you are, you and I have had very, very similar life experiences. There is that fear of, oh my gosh, what if I fail? And I always think that failure is good, right? Failure teaches
I
you what
agree.
doesn't work, and then you can move on and try something else and iterate. So I think that is a really strong lesson for women as they're considering, what their reinvention, what their next act is going to be. Talk to me a little about the most challenging part of your journey, because every one of us faces hurdles and challenges,
Mm-hmm.
and we should not fear them because they help us grow. So give me a little perspective on that.
Yeah, I think a really good thing to think about as a woman is how often we choose comfort over courage. And Brene Brown has said that for many, many years, and it is true. We have a tendency to choose comfort when we go to a meeting. When we go to, as someone who was always wearing a banner that said, "I'm the new kid, talk to me," because I was moving all of the time. I was that mom that, drove up and down the cul-de-sacs in the neighborhood where we had moved, because we'd moved in like July, and kids were starting school in August. And I wanted to meet who was going to be at the bus stop, who are the other people. I was continually putting myself out there to the point of exhaustion, honestly, because, a lot of times when you walk into, I'm sure people listening are going to think about the times they've walked into a meeting, whether it's a PTA meeting or a yoga class or whatever it is. And you immediately go to that group of people that because it's comfortable. I think that was very challenging. I'm very much an extroverted person. I can put myself out there, and I think that's a gift I've always had. But I'll tell you, it gets tiring when you're continually trying to reintroduce yourself constantly. So that was a big challenge for me. And I think I learned a lot from that as both an observer and as somebody who was actually leading that charge and doing it in her own life.
Mhm. And as you said, going into a situation where you don't know anyone. You and I were just chatting about the Mom 2.0 Summit, which I just came
Yeah.
back from.
Yeah.
And I went to Nashville and I knew not one soul. So,
Good for you.
you just have to jump in and put yourself out there, and magic happens, I think, when
It
you do
does.
that. Yeah.
Everybody is connected, and everybody has this together. We form this masterpiece because you start talking to people. I did PodFest in 2019, right before 2020. And I could have been everybody's mom, I think, at that particular conference at that point. They were kind of looking at me like, well, who is this lady, 50 years old, trying to do this? But you know what? You learn and you get in these conversations with people, and you just never know where it goes. So that's choosing courage. And that's
That
what we
is
have to
true.
do.
That is true. So let's dive into the book, pun
Yeah.
intended. And I will add that there is so much that Cannonball covers, and you're going to have to buy the book to really let it all sink in. So moms who are listening, this is a definite must get book. And Amy, I think your book should also come with a highlighter or sticky notes, because
I
I
know.
felt like I was constantly taking notes, and so much of it really personally resonated with my heart. So let's talk about the quest for perfection and the
Mm.
negative thought narration that lives inside all of our heads. We all suffer from it. I even went to therapy because of it. What is it about being a mom that we feel we must somehow achieve that unsustainable and unrealistic state of being?
Mm. And that's for any age of any woman at any phase of life. Perfectionism. That's one of the rungs of the ladder that you get
Right.
stuck on because, as you're climbing up to that high dive, you're saying, oh, come on. I mean, Sharon, come on. I'm going to do this next year because I am going to be 10 pounds slimmer and I'm going to rock that swimsuit. I know it. So I'm going to put it off. Procrastination, the two evil twins,
Right.
perfectionism and procrastination. We are just caught up in it. And what do we spend time on? I had a show yesterday talking about delaying smartphone use for kids, which I'm a big advocate for.
I support that.
But we scroll and we see, and the statistics are showing that we are so disconnected, but yet we're connected to this constantly, but we're all lonely and we're all striving for something. We get
Right.
caught up in this perfectionism thing, and we have to be the role models around that for our daughters
Mhm.
and for others to say, be so happy in the skin that you have, be so thankful that you have another day on this earth. Look at the lines on your face and be so grateful for the stories that they tell. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's just, we have to get past that. And it's a constant battle. It's a constant battle.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'm going to give a shout out to someone that I had the pleasure of meeting named Jenny Schatzel on
Mm,
Instagram, and she teaches women to love their bodies. And she's a trainer. And so everything you just said really resonated. It doesn't matter what you look like. It matters what's inside of you
right.
and your message and how you're teaching your kids to love themselves in the
Yeah.
body that they're in. And our my husband and I have always said we don't really care how they look. We want them to be healthy, and we
Yes.
want inside, and that's
Happy.
really where everything comes from.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So we have to get past that. And I think perfectionism and procrastination go hand in hand.
But
And we
why
tend to
is it
do
that
that.
moms, why are we so, I mean, it's not just how we look, right? It's how we keep the house, and it's
Hmm.
how you entertain, and it's how you have moms over for coffee. There's
Yeah.
this sense of I need to do it a certain way. So how
Right.
do we kick that in the butt? How do we
Yeah.
say goodbye as it's going out the door?
And find contentment and satisfaction where we are in our journey right at that moment and stop
Mhm.
projecting forward. It's funny because there's something in my book I talk about. A good friend of mine in Connecticut, one of the stints we lived in Connecticut, would always drive by my house and say, Amy, I drove a Honda Odyssey. You're never home. You're never there. Yet I was PTA president. I was doing all of these different things. And I really sat one day and thought, gosh, am I just so dissatisfied with where I am right now that I just have to keep on this hamster wheel mentality? Like, if I just sat still and idle for a moment just to appreciate where I am, would I want to be with myself? Would I like myself? And I think those are the check-ins we need to do. We have to like where we are at this moment. We are at where we are right now in our journey, wherever it is,
Mhm.
professionally and personally, because we're supposed to be there. There are no coincidences. That's where we're supposed to be. And,
That's
living in the moment and being present is all stuff that comes as we get older. I know it does, but it's something we need to embrace, and we really need to allow our daughters and our kids and our sons, and just realize that just be present and take in the little things around you. Spend 10 minutes a day in meditative silence. Not meditation, because I'm terrible at meditation. I mean, if you do that, that's great too, but just meditative silence of just taking in the green around you, or holding your coffee cup in the morning and feeling that warmth and
Mhm.
smelling that aroma and just being present instead of chasing all of this other stuff.
Mom to More podcast is sponsored by Ally Shoes. Created by a trio of trailblazing women, these shoes are engineered to alleviate pain. That's because every pair of Ally shoes is handcrafted with premium lambskin leather and an ergonomic, cushy insole design. I mean, from the moment you slip them on, you can tell these shoes are wildly different. They cradle your foot with very strategic support and come in every chic, classic, and live out loud color you can imagine. Many of you probably know how obsessed I am with shoes and boots. I love the 3-inch classic heel, high enough to make your legs look gorgeous, and you can literally wear these all day. And the chunky heel ankle boots, timeless, modern, and every time I wear them, people ask who makes them. Plus, they come in so many sizes and widths that every shoe feels custom to your foot. And I'm sharing the love with all of you. Head on over to ally.nyc, where new customers and listeners of the podcast will get $40 off your first pair of heels with special code MOMTOMORE40, and get 10% off your first pair of boots and flats with special code MOMTOMORE10. Moms, meet your ally in fashion who are reimagining how comfort and function support women every day. Check them out. Ally.nyc. That's a really good point you made. I walked our dog one day, and I think it was like last spring, and I thought, I'm not going to listen to a podcast. I'm just going to walk. And I
Yeah.
listened, I heard the birds, and I heard an airplane flying overhead. I walked by this big tree, and I heard a bee's nest, which I never heard before. And
Yeah.
so when you just let it go and be in nature, be in life, be in that moment, I think that's a
Yes.
really, really strong point and important
I
point.
love that. I think I always say, turn off the noise and tune into grace. And it just allows things around you to come alive in a way that you never noticed.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's a really wonderful, insightful thought. Thank you for that. So, in your chapter entitled "Judges Are Everywhere," you talk about being fearless, and so now we're going to jump in being fearless, and that is such an important idea for our listeners. So, let's really dig into that.
Yeah, being fearless. It's defined differently. Just like success is defined differently for everyone, being fearless is different too. I always say your path to success is never linear. There are rest stops along the way. Your path to being fearless is your own individual path, and it looks different for everyone. And being fearless, like you said earlier, Sharon, is about failure too, and learning through that, because there really is no such thing as failing. It's learning. It's learning.
Or
I
rather,
think
you could
about
say
being
you're
fearless
failing forward. Yeah.
and moving forward, moving
Yeah.
the needle forward. I mean, I certainly did not know how to do a podcast at all when I launched. I remember having Zibby Owens on my show, and I was on hers when she launched way back. We launched about the same time. She was a little earlier than me, I guess, but we talked about the fact we were both books on tape girls. I mean, we really were. We went to the library, and that's what we did. Neither of us knew how to launch a podcast, but that's the beauty of embracing where you are and, engaging in lifetime learning and saying, everything's figure outable, right? Everything is figure outable. So you can be fearless in different ways. For me, that was a real step around technology that I didn't know. And so I wasn't afraid to ask for help. I was fearless around that. Use your resources and your network around you. I lead a lot of discussions around the country. And one of the questions I ask women is, and if you're listening now, who's in your network? And I can't tell you, Sharon, how many times there would be women looking around, looking over their shoulder of somebody in front of them, or seeing what somebody was writing down next to them as they were just sitting there kind of either doodling or thinking, I don't have a network. I've been a mom. I don't have a network, but
Well,
we
but that
do have
is that
networks.
is your network.
Mhm.
Absolutely, that's your network.
Mhm.
Think of all the extraordinary women that you are
Yes,
serving on boards with, and working on volunteering with,
right.
and baking cookies with, at your school. That is an extraordinary place to start.
And I think being fearless too for people listening is, really realizing and noticing that you are moving through life with blind spots. We all are. We all have blind spots. We have that we don't have great peripheral vision. We are pretty much on this runway. And so when you're thinking about taking the next step, whatever that is for you, whether it's around rekindling a relationship, maybe it's starting a business, maybe it's, getting in shape, maybe it's, who knows, doing something that you were passionate about years ago and didn't have time for, reach out to those couple of people. I call them pillars. Your people that support you, that hold you up. When you lean over a little bit, they come back and they tip you up straight. Reach out to those people and ask them that question of, why do you choose to spend time with me? Sharon, why do you want me in your life? And you may say, Amy, because you always listen, or Amy, you always do this. And you walk away saying, wow, I was fearless in asking that question to people that love and know me. But now I've learned something about myself that I didn't realize that I was giving to people because I had blind spots. So be
Right.
fearless in different parts of your life in different ways. And fearless is defined differently for everybody where they are.
That is true. And I love what you just said about asking your dear friends
Yeah.
what it is about you that they like. I remember doing that a couple of years ago with one of my besties, and she came back to me with some answers, and I thought I was blown away. Like, I
Hmm.
didn't realize that I was putting that out, and
Yeah.
that's what she was getting from me. And I think that is a brilliant question for all the moms listening to this,
Yes.
to be a little fearless, take that step, go to
Yeah.
some of your best friends and say, tell me what you love about me. Tell
Yes.
me, why are you my friend? And
Yeah, in a
yeah,
world that is large and vast, and you're spending time with me, because we all know at this stage of life, after being a stay-at-home mom too, relationships changed, everything changes, and you want to invest your time wisely.
Yes.
You do a life audit, you do a time audit, and you figure out who those pillars are. And when you find them, you ask them. And I tell you, it's really something you can do at any time. And at first they're like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I've been your friend for, since the kids were 2 years old. What are you thinking? Why are you asking me this, Amy? But then when you just really keep nudging, that's where the magic happens. And then you do the same, you reciprocate to them and let them know. We get very, very caught up in staying in this lane and this is all we do. And there's so much out on the sides. And we just have to get rid of those blind spots.
I think that's a brilliant suggestion. Thank you for that. So I'm going to ask you a question. And when I read this in your book, it really struck me because I did this. And I think so many of us do it. And that is accepting a compliment without deflecting it. Huge, absolutely huge, right?
Huge.
So how do we get people to say, if someone gives you a compliment, you just say, oh, no big deal. Oh, that's an old whatever. How do you honor yourself and accept that compliment with grace?
And not deflect it. Oh my gosh. This is a whole exercise. And the people listening today are going to have lots of takeaways. And this is a good one because go in the restroom at Macy's or at Target or TJ Maxx or whatever, and you say to someone, "Oh my gosh, that sweater is so pretty on you." Most often, what do we say? "Oh, really? Oh, because today I'm too heavy right now." Or we say it was $10 at TJ Maxx instead of just simply saying two powerful words, "Thank you."
Thank you. Yes.
And I take this a little farther in the book, and I love everybody to come up with a "Tell Me Something Good" jar because I think it's very important. Actually, somebody out of New York designed them for me for many years, but they were just these cute little jars. But you can use anything; you don't have to buy something special. Use the bowl, and in the notes of your phone or something, when you get a compliment, today, you said to me, "Oh, Amy, you look so pretty in pink." Thank you. I can write that down. And on those days and we all have those days, right? When you just want to take those covers and just peel them back over your head and just make it all go away.
Been there.
Go to your Tell Me Something Good jar and pull out those compliments that people have given you. And then you say, oh, this is the value that I've put out into the world. This is how I've made someone's day in a way, and they made my day. It was reciprocated. So the two best words you can use when you get a compliment is just simply thank you. And that's it.
I love that.
And let it sit.
Very
and that
easy,
silent pause, that pregnant pause, whatever you want to call it. It's like, oh my gosh, I should be saying really, but you don't. You just say thank you, and it's amazing how it makes you feel.
Yeah, and because it doesn't require anything more than a simple thank you, and then allow yourself to soak in what someone just said to you.
Yeah, right.
So let's dive into power statements. You spoke about that a lot in your book, and I want you to talk about this concept and what are they and why are they essential for moms and for women? Yeah. So it starts with I am.
Yes. Greatness statements. And you know what? I'm going to challenge you right now because don't go Google greatness statements or I am statements because you're going to get a whole lot of them and they're somebody else's. You have to create your own and you can't judge them. You just write them down. And for new moms or stay-at-home moms who are now reinventing themselves and pivoting to something new or moms that now are grandmothers, I'll tell you, take time to come up with your greatness statements. So Muhammad Ali said, "I'm the greatest of all time." And he said that before he was because he knew that if he didn't believe it himself, nobody else was going to believe him. That's just the way it was. So you come up with these creative I am statements. I am passionate. I am strong. I am healthy. I am a great listener. Whatever it is, you jot them down on a little sticky note and put them in your handbag or tuck them in your nightstand or put one on your mirror. And, I do that sometimes with friends if they're visiting or something because they know I do a lot of that kind of thing. I'll tuck it in their purse before they leave or when they open their suitcase, they'll have a little message from me. What I think they are, fantastic or a great friend or whatever. And it's just a little treasure for them to have. And it can be seriously on with a big pen and a sticky note, but come up with some creative ones for yourself. And, we have a tendency to use the power of Google and it's wonderful to use that for some things, but these are your own greatness statements and edit them often. They're not going to be the same all the time, but write those I am statements and then say it out loud or grab it out of your handbag and look at it and say, wow, I am pretty awesome. And those are the things that they sound so simple, but they're so impactful. And it's what we need at any stage of life, especially as moms.
100%. And that will then lead us into something you said in the book, and I'm going to say this right now because I want everyone listening to this podcast to do this. I want everyone listening to stand in front of the mirror and say, damn, I'm good.
Oh, yeah,
And believe
exactly.
it.
Exactly. And believe it. And stand tall and let your shoulders go down and, just look at you how you are. Mel Robbins does the high five in the mirror. She's done that for a long time. And just stand in front of the mirror and look at yourself and just be so proud of where you are right now and how you've gotten there. And that's through the highlight reel, which I don't know if we'll get into today, but that is looking back at, not your greatest hits, but this is looking back at what you've accomplished as a mom and a wife, a sister, a daughter, a friend, all of those things. Some of those things, it doesn't matter, but look at those chunks of time over decades of what you've accomplished.
Right.
Not only your triumphs and successes, but your challenges and your failures. And then stand in the mirror and say, damn, I'm good. I did this. I've made it through this. Nobody's life is perfect and there's no linear path to success. There are many rest stops along the way. And if you're a mom who has been a stay-at-home mom for 20 years, and there's more, that's why this podcast is out there. You know what? You use those skills that you have and those stories that have created, who you are, and just really revel in that because it is magical.
That is for sure. And all of those skills that we are honing while we are raising the next generation of humans.
Yes.
So it is really the most important job on the planet. So how does a mom start to gather her highlight reel? How would you recommend to do that?
Yeah. It's a real simple exercise, and it's a gift that you can give yourself of self-reflection. Silence your phones, shut your door, go into your closet, wherever it is. Like my girlfriend used to hide a bottle of wine in her laundry room and call me from there as she's sitting on her dryer. I mean, this is real stuff. I mean, this is what we do.
We like that woman. Okay.
Yeah, she's one of my besties. And you sit down and you just look back at what you have done in this 10, 20, 30-year gap of maybe when you stayed home with the kids, what you did before that. What were your skills? What were the biggest challenges? Where did you experience some failure? What were some things that really are part of, your story? Because I always say you are the historian of your life and the keeper of your stories. You're the only one that knows that. So take time to write those things down. There was a woman that wrote in years ago to me in her 50s who had been downsized. And she still wanted to work and knew she had to work, but she was looking at, all of the different job descriptions and wasn't checking every box on them. And she was getting frustrated. And, men don't check 60% of the boxes and they still apply. But, the women feel we have to check all the boxes and men don't. That's basically the whole thing.
Right.
And when I sat down with her and we really started going through some of the things that she had done, she's like, oh my gosh, Amy, I forgot I did that. I did that. Well, I was, I managed that budget of like whatever it was for the booster club and raised the most money in history and forgot that she had done that. And she's like, oh my gosh, I do check that box. Mm-hmm. And in areas where you need to enhance your skills, once again, go to those people in your life and use your resources.
No, that is wonderful advice and wisdom. And it is something I think we all should do because it helps us feel good about the things that we've done.
Where our cadence is so fast. Our attention span is so little. I mean, we never take that time. And that is actually a gift to yourself when you just actually sit down. My friend Diane, who I know will listen to this, she was a stay-at-home mom as well. And she said, Amy, I just did it again. I just sat down and did my highlight reel. And I came up with a bunch of other things I did I forgot about. And then she shared them with her husband and is like, do you remember when I did that? And he was like, well, yeah, I remember. Well, she had completely forgotten about it. Right. Her moment of brilliance, just there was no light really shown on it. She just went to the next thing. So
because we have so many moments of brilliance that oftentimes we just forget because there's such a long list of them.
Yes.
So then my next question for you is, what advice would you give to your 30-year-old self?
Yeah, that's the question I ask on every one of my podcasts. That was the question. My final question on my show was always, what advice would you give your 30-year-old self? And really none of them were ever the same. I would go over to that 30-year-old Amy and give her a big hug and just say, you are loved and you are enough just as you are. And I would want her to know that because I was somebody that wanted to get there further, faster than anybody else. I was always a perfectionist. I'm a recovering perfectionist. I was striving for perfection in my career, in everything I do. everything. That's just something that I think we have to really think about as we go through life, and really think about our moments of brilliance that might have been overlooked.
Amy, we are nearing the end of our time. I'm going to ask you a question that I ask all of my moms. This being the Mom to More podcast, I'd like to ask you, Amy Schmidt, what is your more?
I love that question. More stories, which will create more memories, which will create more laughter and more love. That's what I want. I want more stories. I want to share more stories. I want to make connections with more women to share their stories. I want this just to be this continual masterpiece to put together. And with stories comes so many memories. And that's my more. That's what I want to continue to do. My more is making connections with people just like with you. And, marveling at people like yourself that decide, I can do this. And then share that story. That's what I want to do. That's really my more.
Right. And for that, I will say thank you. So please tell my listeners where everyone can find you online. And folks, these will all be in the show notes.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. You can go to fearlesslyfacing50.com, F-I-F-T-Y. It's always spelled out. You can also go to theamyschmidt.com, and it's the good old German way, SCHMIDT. And I know Sharon will put that in. You can find me on Facebook, The Amy Schmidt, or Fearlessly Facing 50, either one. And on Instagram, I have a new one now. It's theamy.schmidt. And sorry about that. My son just ran, he's at Bucknell, and he just had to run a half marathon today to raise money for cancer. So he just finished.
That's huge. Congratulations.
Very happy about that. You can email me at amy@fearlesslyfacing50.com, and Sharon can share that too. And I always give myself a grace period of 48 hours at least to get back to people, but I do answer everybody. And I love just to connect people. That's what it's about for me. That's what makes my heart swell, is for somebody listening today that, there's a tangible takeaway in there that they can say, okay, you know what? If Amy can cannonball at 50 off of a cliff in Negril with her bifocal sunglasses on, by the way,
right?
Anybody can do it. Anybody can do it.
That is true. And where can people find your book?
They can find it on my website. And I'm happy to do book clubs. I've done book clubs all over the world, which has been really cool. I launched this in 2020. So as you can know, launching a book in 2020, of course, your first one is a challenge. And I was able to connect with book clubs all over the world. So if you have a book club, shoot me an email. I can send you signed copies, and we can do that as well.
I don't know if you can see all of my sticky notes that are here, and just connected on such a visceral level to so many things that you said. So highly recommend people finding Cannonball and really delving into it with a highlighter. Amy Schmidt, this has been so much fun. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for spending this time with me.
Oh, you bet. Keep cannonballing, keep soaring. You're doing a great job.
Before I sign off, a quick favor. I would love it if you would take a few moments to follow or subscribe to the pod. Following us means you'll never miss an episode, and it really does help the show to grow. Just go to the Mom to More show page on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen in. Tap the plus sign in the upper right corner or click on follow. While you're there, if you'd be willing to leave a 5-star rating and review and share an episode with another mom, I'd be so grateful and appreciate your support. Thanks for listening in, and see you next time.